very few cars out there that are unquestionably one of a kind, something that can't be compared to anything else. A Dodge Viper is without a doubt in that category, and it's an absolute shame it isn't around anymore. It's been nearly a decade since the sensational machine was discontinued, and today we're revisiting the legend that is the Viper to see if it stood up to the test of time. What makes a Viper unique? That's an answer that goes beyond its striking and unmistakable appearance. The 5th generation Viper is a manual rear-wheel drive coupe with an 8.4-liter V10. This means it's one of the largest engines ever placed in a production vehicle, one of very few cars with a front-engine V10, and perhaps the only one to be a manual coupe with that engine layout. Other front-engine V10 cars include the E60 M5, which is a sedan, or the Lexus LFA, which never offered a manual. In essence, the Viper formula is one of a kind and something you can't get anywhere else. Digging deeper into the engine, this is one of the best designed engines ever made and can handle 2,000 or even 3,000 horsepower when modified by companies like Calvo. In stock form, it pulls like an LS V8, but stronger. It's like an LS in that the torque production is incredibly flat and the car jumps forward regardless of RPM, building speed more effortlessly than anything else I've experienced. Even though the redline isn't that high at 6,200 RPM, the gearing is so tall that the car just pulls and pulls for what feels like forever until you're met with the Viper snake logo on the gauge cluster glowing red as you approach redline, a detail that makes the Viper feel that much more special. There's no question that the Viper in any trim is ridiculously quick in a straight line, especially at higher speeds where many other cars would begin to run out of breath. Thanks to the massive displacement, the Viper keeps pushing forward to a top speed of 206 miles per hour, making it one of the most affordable cars to be capable of such a feat. When you get on the gas in a Viper, it feels as if the car just thunders underneath you. Part of that is the raw and uninsulated nature of the car, but also the fact that the exhaust is quite literally underneath you. Having a side dump exhaust with an outlet under each door, the Viper is an odd sounding V10. At low RPM it sounds a bit like a boat or a semi-truck, but once you get north of 3,000 RPM, that conventional V10 sound springs to life, and it just gets better and better as the RPM climbs. It's another fantastic component of the Viper formula. As great as the engine and exhaust of the Viper are, I would actually argue that the highlight of the car is in the transmission and clutch. It's the most difficult to operate manual transmission that I've ever driven, and I've tried a few dozen at this point. The clutch is heavy with an immensely long throw, the bite point is super high and slightly awkward, and because the RPM drops so fast, you have to ease into the gas before fully letting the clutch out. It essentially upshifts like a bike. To some, that might not sound like a good thing, but it makes getting smooth shifts unbelievably satisfying. You get it even slightly wrong, and the whole car jolts violently from how heavy the clutch's pressure plate is. Once you get the hang of it though, shifting is pure magic. It becomes an activity where you have to think about everything and be fully engaged. Pair that with the V10 engine and exhaust note previously discussed, and you get a sensory overload of stimulation as a driver that will make you always take the long way home. Now, the early generations gained a reputation for being rather dangerous, and rightfully so. Whenever you would lift off the throttle while turning, the car would abruptly oversteer, one of the most advanced instabilities a driver must learn to correct. As a result, many crashed the early generation Vipers, and a lack of electronic stability assist just made things worse. While this dynamic is still somewhat present, with the weight of the Viper being all up front thanks to its massive engine, it's much more controlled in this final version of the car. This isn't just because of the addition of modern traction control, rather the incredible suspension the 5th gen Viper is equipped with. The shocks were done by Bilstein, and they are actually adjustable for a dual mode setup. With the press of a button in the cabin, you can select between street and race mode to alter the car's damping coefficient. Such technology is quite common today, but for a 10-year-old car this was groundbreaking at the time, and something that allowed the Viper to be more livable while retaining top-shelf performance. The biggest difference the final generation Viper made in handling was actually in the torsional stiffness of the chassis. In numerous locations, large braces like the one you see under the hood are present to tighten the car up and increase responsiveness. The Viper isn't the lightest of cars, coming in over 3,400 pounds, but you genuinely do not feel it. While cornering, the size of the front end can be felt and also seen in that the rotation feels like it occurs in front of you, but it still feels nimble and quick. Steering has a great feel but is very heavy. You really have to muscle the car around, and it requires fair effort from the driver to drive in a spirited way. I personally love this characteristic, but I could imagine that some may prefer a lighter feel. With that said, if you took this Viper GTS, stiffened the suspension further, and added an unfathomable amount of downforce, you get the ACR. At its core, this suspension setup in the GTS was properly done, and adding downforce just takes the car to another level, one that explains why the ACR remains one of the fastest road-legal track cars ever made over a decade later. Over the generations, the Viper has went through a range of looks, but the final iteration is my favorite by a long shot. The second generation has a lot of the same lines as this car and also looks great, but the Gen 5 is one of the angriest looking cars on the road. If I were to make a list of cars I wouldn't want to see in my rearview mirror, this would be pretty close to the top. The headlights are so much more modern, the bumper proportions are just right with functional air vents throughout. The hood is nicely rounded out and actually one of the most expensive parts ever put on a production car. This is because the entire hood is carbon fiber to keep extra weight off the front end, which is visible from underneath. Additionally, the headlights are directly integrated into the hood and actually lift up with it. The snout in the middle mates up with the air intake of the engine, pulling cold air straight from the atmosphere. Two vents are present in the GTS hood for heat extraction, with many more available in the SRT and ACR trims. From the side, the Viper has a profile like nothing else, with a massive cut just in front of the doors to let air out of the wheel wells and beautiful curves throughout. Speaking of wheels, the fronts are 18 inches and the rears 19 inches in diameter, with a staggered setup having 295 front and 355 rear tire widths. The massive rear tires make traction much better than I would have expected. Straight line wheel spin is only a thing in first gear. Once you're in second or higher, the rear is actually very stable and the car puts the power down perfectly. I also like how these wheels are slightly smaller in diameter to maintain good handling and sharp turning characteristics. Many American muscle and sports cars suffer from always using 20-inch wheels. That can often look too large or even dull the handling. I also think the 12-spoke design and metal finish on these wheels fit the car just right. Under those wheels are large blank brake rotors, and while not looking as cool as drilled and slotted perhaps, these are actually a lot better for track use. Drilled rotors in particular create stress concentrations at the holes where they can fracture if exposed to extreme heat from the ensuing expansion and contraction. Like many American sports cars, all calipers are from Brembo with 6 pistons in the front and 4 in the rear. These stop the car with so much force you would think it weighs the same as a Miata, and the ACR even allows for a brake bias adjustment, yet another thing that proves the Viper was way ahead of its time. In the cabin, I think this interior was done just right. The seats are a fantastic leather material with the Viper logo stitched into the headrest. They are wide to maintain comfort, with large side bolsters making them completely adequate in the event of track use. From the factory, the entire interior comes in either black or tan, and I've seen both. The black is definitely the better option and just feels a little bit more comfortable inside. Looking back at this car in modern times, this was the golden era of automotive interiors. Modern technology with a nice gauge cluster and digital speed readout, along with fit and finish suggestive of a European car. However, you still have physical buttons for AC controls, and there aren't 18 massive tablets glued onto the dashboard like a complete afterthought, a trend that modern cars should drop as soon as possible. There's a surprising amount of storage with a hatch setup similar to a Corvette, and the steering wheel and shifter are all high quality leather. From the driver's seat, visibility is decent everywhere but rearward, although don't listen to me on that because I drive a Camaro daily and have no clue what good visibility actually is. I love how much the hood and fenders is visible from the inside. It's a constant reminder of how special this car really is. As time has rolled on from when this car was originally released, the automotive landscape has completely been flipped on its head. Everything has small turbocharged engines, is hybrid or even fully electric. The manual transmission is dying, and the amount of true sports cars on the market has vastly diminished. The V10 has also pretty much died at this point, with the R8 and Huracan being discontinued. As bleak as this all is for true sports car enthusiasts, it makes me appreciate what the Viper embodied that much more. It was a final masterpiece inclusive of everything we've lost. I approached this video with the mindset of seeing if the Viper lives up to modern standards. Not only does it compete, but it's better than modern cars in nearly every way. I love it more now than I did when it first came out. It's a visually and audibly loud 8.4-liter V10 sports car with a manual transmission and rear-wheel drive. That's a combination I'm willing to bet we'll never see again, and one that everyone should get the chance to experience. I always liked the Viper when the final generation debuted, but driving one over a decade later has made me realize this is one of the greatest production cars ever made. It makes your senses tingle like nothing else and molds you into a skilled driver. The branding of the Viper is just iconic and incredibly unique. As time goes on, there will be many cars that we look back on lovingly as enthusiasts, although very few will be known to be as special as the Viper. This has been a car review with Running to Redline. Thank you for watching and have a great day.